One of the main features of the age of exploration was the discovery of the New World, the Americas, and of course, Christopher Columbus. That's what this lesson will focus on. So, no one really set out to discover the Americas. Instead, their discovery was the result of a travel mistake that came as Europeans looked for a shorter route to India and other colonies they controlled in the Pacific Ocean. Although the discovery of the Americas was accidental, its impact was far reaching. For the first time, contact between two isolated hemispheres of the world transpired. An important cultural diffusion between these two spheres occurred, as did serious demographic changes. Columbus believed that the world was much smaller than it was. Books like Marco Polo's Travels and Cardinal Pierre Daly's Imago Mundi seem to imply that Europe and Asia were relatively close to each other across the Atlantic. Consequently, Columbus felt that one could sail west from Europe and arrive in the East Indies much quicker than by sailing around the coast of Africa, for he believed that Japan was merely 2,500 nautical miles from the Canary Islands on the west coast of Africa. However, he had a hard time finding anyone to financially support his voyage. The King of Portugal rejected his idea, but he was finally able to convince King Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain to fund his journey. Although there was great doubt about his plan, he was given three ships: the Nina, the Pinta, and Santa Maria. He was given a crew of sailors, Spanish sailors, and permission to find whatever he could by sailing west. He departed on August 3rd, 1942. Did I say 1942? I meant 1492. Columbus's journey began by sailing southwest to the Canary Islands off the coast of West Africa, and then west to the Atlantic Ocean. On October 12th, 1492, land was sighted, a land that he called San Salvador, the Savior. Today, this is part of the Bahamas. Although he did not encounter the people he had expected, he explored the Caribbean. He thought he was in East Indies and discovered for the Europeans the islands of Hispaniola and Cuba. He did receive a small bit of gold from the natives. This convinced him he had reached the Far East. His discoveries and the shipwreck of the Santa Maria convinced Columbus to return to Spain, confident he had found a new sea route to East Indies. He found the way to India. Thrilled with Columbus's return, the monarchs of Spain sent him back a second time with a larger fleet and 1,500 sailors. The Spanish elected to use Columbus's island of Hispaniola as the base for their endeavors in the Americas. 6 months after returning from his first voyage, Columbus set sail again, this time with 17 ships. Although he continued to explore, he was also instructed to set up trading posts in the places that they encountered. On his second voyage, Columbus discovered Puerto Rico and Jamaica and founded the first permanent European settlement in the New World, Santo Domingo, current-day Dominican Republic. With his third journey, Columbus explored the northern coast of South America, opening an entire new continent for European exploration. However, he had a dispute with the governor of Hispaniola, and he was sent back to Spain as a prisoner. Isabella later absolved him of any wrongdoing. Columbus left for his final journey to the Americas in 1502 and charted the coast of Central America. He returned sick and died in 1506. Though others doubted, correctly, that he had discovered a route to India, Columbus claimed until he died that he had found a sea route to the Indies. Amerigo Vespucci. Vespucci was not a seaman, instead, he was a geographer. He did not lead expeditions himself, but accompanied others and made note of what they found and where they found it. In 1501, Vespucci sailed to the tip of Brazil and possibly explored as far as Patagonia. He made careful notes of all that the expedition encountered. A German cartographer named Martin Waldseemüller created a map in 1507 that attempted to incorporate the new knowledge gained about the Americas into a map, which he named for Vespucci, calling it America. Once Columbus's discovery became known, additional Spanish explorers headed to the Americas to see what else they could find. Explorers headed to the Americas for a variety of reasons. Some went to find gold and silver, while others went to establish plantations and exploit agricultural opportunities by using the natives as forced labor. Still others, like monks and priests, went to spread Catholicism. Conquistadors were adventurers who explored, conquered, and looked for economic opportunities in the Americas, regardless of the costs to the Native Americans. Hernan Cortez. Cortez attacked the Aztec Empire in Mexico with an army of 508 soldiers armed with muskets, 16 horses, and 10 brass cannons. With this relatively small army, he managed to defeat the entire Aztec Empire because of his more advanced military technology and because of his horses, which scared the Aztecs. His managed to supplant his initially small army with other European forces as he advanced. So, as Cortez advanced the capital of the Aztecs, the natives joined him because the Aztecs were really cruel rulers, and those in the region supported the overthrow of the Aztec rulers and joined Cortez's army. So when I say 508, I mean 508 European soldiers. He had many more natives join his ranks. Cortez's ability to conquer the Aztecs came in part because the Aztecs, at least initially, believed that Cortez was some sort of deity, a god, for he seemed to fulfill a prophecy that spoke of a pale man coming on a beast similar to a horse. Consequently, Montezuma, the ruler of the Aztecs, did not resist the interaction with Cortez, believing that the gods had come to him. Cortez took advantage of this to attack and defeat the Aztecs and took Montezuma captive. A further advantage that Cortez had was his ability to rally other natives to his side. Some of the Aztecs' neighbors were unhappy with the tribute the Aztecs demanded of them, and they welcomed the opportunity to ally themselves with the Europeans to help defeat the Aztec Empire. In 1535, Cortez also explored the region around the Gulf of California. Cortez made the Aztec capital in Mexico City the headquarters for Spanish affairs in the region. As governor, he adopted a pattern of rule that later Spanish colonizers would follow. Rather than killing the Native Americans, he forced them to work for the Spanish in different economic ventures, including mining and plantation work. He also emphasized conversion to Catholicism and aided the work of missionaries and priests. During Cortez's rule, the colony seemed to prosper. Mexico became a Catholic country, and an enormous amount of Mexican silver was sent to Spain. Francisco Pizarro, another conquistador. With even fewer men than Cortez, Pizarro was able to conquer the Incas in Peru. He met with very little resistance. Like Cortez and the Aztecs, Pizarro was able to encourage other natives who felt oppressed by the Incas to join him in his efforts to defeat the Incas. Pizarro was able to capture Atahualpa, the leader of the Incas, relatively easily, due in part to superior technology. Once Atahualpa had been captured, Pizarro negotiated with the Incas. His demands were simple: bring him gold, and he would release the leader. The people complied and brought Pizarro treasure, but in the end, he killed Atahualpa anyway. The Incas were completely demoralized by the duplicity of the Spanish and essentially gave up. Pizarro was notorious for his treatment of the Native Americans. His treatment was so appalling that he was murdered by his own followers in 1541 in Lima. However, this set a terrible pattern in Peru, and centuries of exploitation of the natives followed, including heavy taxation and brutal forced labor in the fields and mines. Portuguese and Spanish explorers in the New World. After sailing to India and participating in the Indian Ocean Trade Network, Cabral set sail for Portugal in 1500 to help strengthen Portuguese claims in the New World. He landed in Brazil and discovered that it fell east of the line established in the Treaty of Tordesillas, and therefore belonged to Portugal. However, it would be more than 40 years before the Portuguese government really began to settle the land of Brazil. Once settled, though, the Portuguese discovered that Brazil was an ideal place to grow sugar. They would develop a large sugar plantation system in Brazil, which also increased the demand for slaves. Balboa is best known for his 1513 crossing of the Isthmus of Panama in search for gold. In doing so, he became the first known European to discover the Pacific Ocean by crossing the Americas. He also ended any doubt as to whether Columbus had discovered the Far East, conclusively proving he had not. In addition to exploring Latin America, The Spanish also investigated the lands of North America. Ponce de Leon discovered Florida, the first known foray into North America by Europeans. This was in 1513. Leon was looking for the fabled Fountain of Youth. Many explorers were looking for the Fountain of Youth. Cabeza de Vaca was shipwrecked west of the Mississippi in 1528 and spent time exploring modern day Texas and New Mexico. De Soto formally conquered Florida for Spain and discovered the Mississippi River. De Coronado went to North America in search of the fabled Seven Cities of Cibola, where streets of gold were purported to exist. Although he did not find the seven cities, he did discover the Grand Canyon and explored as far as Kansas. Magellan. While great discoveries had been made by the Spanish explorers, they had still failed to accomplish the original goal that Columbus had sought, the discovery of a sea route to the East Indies. Magellan organized a voyage originally made up of 5 ships that set sail to the Americas, where they explored inlets along the coast of South America, hoping to find an entrance to the Pacific Ocean. They finally discovered that it was possible to go around the tip of South America and reach the Pacific Ocean. As they traveled the Pacific, Magellan and his crew encountered significant hardships. Clean, fresh water was difficult to acquire, and they suffered from scurvy and food shortages. At one point, they turned to rats and the leather from the sail riggings for food. In 1521, after crossing the Pacific, Magellan and his crew came to the Philippines and claimed it for the Spanish. However, Magellan himself became involved in a dispute between 2 ruling monarchs, and while attempting to aid one against the other, he was killed in the fighting. After Magellan's death, Delcano took over and sailed the remaining ships back around the coast of Africa and home to Spain in 1522. Of the original crew of 280, only 35 survived. This was the first trip around the world ever taken. Avoiding conflict in the New World. As early colonization in the Americas began, Spain and Portugal began to have disputes about territory in the New World. In order to stave off potential conflicts, Spain and Portugal appealed to Pope Alexander VI to help generate a solution to colonization in the New World so that each country would have recognized territory to explore without entering into conflict with each other. The Treaty of Tordesillas essentially divided the Americas between these 2 countries, Portugal and Spain, and gave them a free hand in colonizing and exploiting the Americas. The line on the map you see indicates how the division worked. The end result of the Treaty of Tordesillas was that Portugal was given free rein in Africa and Asia, as well as in Brazil. Spain was given control over the rest of all the Americas. That'll end our video today. Here's your questions on Google Form.